Hello all, my name is Bartholomew Conroy, and I'm here to talk to you about the creatures you may face on your next mission. Case File: The Hugging Horror. The Hugging Horror is one of the many entities that roam the halls of an abandoned factory located in Thebes, Illinois. The building is owned by one Elijah Ludham and stands as the primary factory for the ImagePlay Corporation, a company that prides itself on creating new and innovative toys. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that is all that wants to come out of the factory. The Hugging Horror is not an entity to be taken lightly. Whilst its name might seem a tad jovial or childish, it very much suits the being and is the main reason why you don't want to be found walking around the factory. But then again, I suppose you wouldn't necessarily want to be caught by any of the monstrosities that lurk in the place's halls. It's a being that seems eerily humanoid, but is significantly more monstrous. It is bipedal, standing at a height of 9 foot, and is recognisable for its heart-shaped head and bright blue fur. In terms of anatomy, the creature seems to have a similar structure to normal humans, but has a second elbow that bends in the opposite direction on each arm. Its feet are the exact same as the creature's hands, much like how monkeys and apes have feet closely resembling hands themselves. Each hand/foot comprises of 3 conjoined fingers and a separated thumb, which would suggest the creature has less range of movement but does not hinder the creature when it is hunting. When in the company of other entities of the site, it appears slow and gangly, almost docile and relaxed in its composure, but if a human is seen, primarily adult humans, the creature will hunt them down mercilessly, by any means until either it is injured or the prey is devoured. This brings us to the creature's tactics. Despite the entity having appeared through a portal, it seems to know the factory like the back of its hand, often using ventilation shafts and tunnels to traverse through the factories. It appears as though the creature's body can compress when needed to squeeze into tight spaces, and it has no issue chasing our operatives down the aforementioned locations. However, this being said, the creature does take longer to access these areas on account of its size, so your best option is to make up as much ground as possible during this period, or if you are lucky enough to be carrying a weapon, use it. While on the topic of harming the entity, we do suggest not using firearms, or else you risk drawing the attention of other entities. We suspect that they can be harmed by weapons such as this, but will continue to attack regardless of the injury. Most operatives who have come into contact with the creature have unfortunately been pronounced KIA, but there has been an individual who is currently in the facility who managed to escape the creature by destroying a gangway above a large chasm. Unfortunately, this did not end the entity, suggesting it is one of the stronger creatures within the location, but did mean the operative could get further than anyone else we have sent down there. If the creature does indeed catch you, it will devour you, and this is where you find out the reason for the creature's name. When it grabs a hold of you, it will wrap its gangly arms around your waist and arms, embracing you before tightening its grasp, slowly constricting you until you beg for air. It will continue to squeeze tighter until your ribcage cracks and your lungs are crushed. When you're in a state where you can't fight anymore, it will open its bright red maw, showing multiple rows of sharp, dagger-like teeth, and consume you. The creature remains locked in the confines of the factory, and we intend to keep it that way. It has indeed attempted to escape its prison, but since prior mentioned events occurred, it hasn't been able to make it back up to the upper levels of the factory, and is trapped, along with the numerous other creatures, in what appears to be an endless basement of secrets and nightmares. We're still not sure of what else remains to be seen in this place, but we intend to either conceal these from the public eye or eradicate every last beast down there. For now, at least the biggest threat has been pushed away and is easier to control. Case File: The Arnabus Lion. As our operatives continued to venture into the lower layers of the ImagePlay factory, we began to have issues with static on all our devices. For now, we are unsure of whether this is anything to be concerned about or whether it's just a result of the current depth that our operatives find themselves at. However, what does concern the agency is the growls and roars that cut through the static, and the creature that has been reported by several operatives with evidence of mauling and mutilation. The Yarnibus lion is a name given to one of the many animalistic creatures that make their current home in the factory. We only know of its name because of some strange blueprints that appear to map the anatomy of the creature, blueprints that concern our agency and give us the impression that we are hunting the wrong entity. They were signed with a simple Dr. S, bringing forth more questions than answers at this point in time, but it appears as though this individual was hindering our mission further by creating more creatures for us to avoid, including our lion. As the name suggests, the creature appears not too dissimilar to a lion, but does take on some vastly different traits to the animal that people travel to see on the plains of Africa. It is slightly larger in scale and takes on a similar trait to the extinct Smilodon in the fact that it has a stronger upper build in its shoulders and front legs. The legs themselves are standard for a lion in shape and build, but its paws are significantly larger, accurately around 3 times larger than that of a normal lion. This is where it gets interesting, however. Where the mane of the lion would usually grow, this creature grows something quite different, like thick yarn growing from large paws in the creature's head and back. What's stranger still is the fact that this yarn grows in a multitude of different colours, varying depending on where it is on the creature's body. It's hard to see why someone would do this unless they were sadistically trying to keep on the theme of toys running around the factory. At least, this gives us ample time to run away if we see the bright colours appearing from the shadows, and is the reason many of our operatives have survived. The biggest difference, and by all accounts it is absolutely horrific to see in person, is the creature's face. Rather than having the face of a lion, the head of the creature is entirely cylindrical, apart from 2 bulging eyes. As far as we can tell, the creature isn't blind but does rely heavily on sound when tracking its prey, suggesting partial blindness at least. As for the creature's mouth, that's an entirely different story. It appears as though it has a standard mouth, but will instead open a maw that opens vertically down the creature's face, where there had once been a supposed seam. This is paired with the expected mouth, meaning it opens similarly to a grotesque, fleshy flower. Along all edges of its mouth are razor-sharp teeth, but that isn't where it ends. There is a second smaller mouth on the inside of the flower, which appears as though it was designed based on the pharyngeal eel. What makes this creature even more disturbing is the terrible fact that we came across whilst reading through the blueprints uncovered from Dr. S's abandoned laboratory. The creature's body had been created through means of experimental cloning, but they never intended on growing the brain. This beast was created in what can only be assumed to be a series of mad experiments, and this body was always intended to be a vessel. We travelled back to the lab only to find a series of cages with children's skeletons trapped inside, with another skeleton lying on a surgical table with its cranium cut open. We now know that the creature known as the Yarnibus lion had once been a child by the name of Barnaby Crowther, and his brain was stuffed into that creature. A combination of fear, anger and trauma has resulted in the animalistic and predatory tendencies shown by the entity. We can only assume that there has been damage to the child's brain, and therefore we can't see them as a child any longer. We need to question whether any of the other creatures are transformed humans, or whether some of these are truly monsters. Hopefully, the blueprints recovered from the site will shed some light on the exact issues this location is facing. If the creature attacks you, your best bet is fire. The creature's yarn-like fur burns easily, and there are signs that the creature is afraid of fire. Hopefully it doesn't attack you at this point, but if it does, you cannot hesitate to burn the creature. I know this is a hard thing to consider, knowing what you do now, but given the circumstances, if it reaches this point, it is you or the monster. I'm sorry for those of you that may not like what you have heard today. It's been very difficult reading this file. I wish I could say that the files of this location do get better, but they in fact don't. If any of you need help or comfort in this time, I understand completely, but know that this job doesn't get any easier.